Well, good afternoon, everybody. We are so glad that you are here today for top 10 LinkedIn secrets for today's business educator. My name is Joe McClary. I'm the executive director of NBEA, and I am online today with Dave G. And I'm going to turn the presentation over to him in just a moment. I'd like to tell you a little bit about our guest today. Dave G is the CEO and founder at the EdTech startup called Hello Digital and Hello Digital Ed. So you may have heard of him. He's an Amazon best-selling author, Fortune 500 marketer, and digital marketing and entrepreneurship faculty who is passionate about building future innovators and entrepreneurs. Dave began his career working in business development and marketing for Fortune 500 firms, including Motorola, Humana, and has become a serial entrepreneur. Dave's founded 4 startups, so he comes with a lot of experience, including Hello Digital Ed, which right now provides an engaging, transformative business curriculum for schools. And I have heard that he's got quite a few schools who are taking advantage of their digital marketing curriculum. So Dave launched the digital marketing curriculum for the University of Wisconsin in Madison in their MBA program. And Dave manages the entrepreneurship program at the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater. Now, Dave is a vendor today, but at the same time, we always give disclaimers to our vendors that there's no hard sales. He might give you a special offer at the end, but at the end of the day, there's reciprocal value, and there you get some great information. At the same time, there's no hard sales, there's no pressure. And sometimes we find our vendors give us the best and the latest and the greatest. And so we're happy to have Dave G with us. Dave, thanks for being here. And I'll turn it over to you. Give us some great information about LinkedIn.
Sure. Great. Thanks, Joe. So welcome, everybody. I have a funny last name. It's pronounced like the letter G. So it's Dave G. I was actually born in England, and so you don't hear the name much in the States. I came here when I was little. What we're going to be discussing today is I'll tell you a little bit about me, a little bit about Hello Digital Ed. Again, like Joe said, this is not a pitch, just to give you kind of an idea of my world. And then obviously what we're going to be focusing on today is the top 10 LinkedIn secrets for business educators. I've also built a LinkedIn assessment tool. There's nothing scientific about this whatsoever. So my fellow academics would probably string me up for sharing this tool, but I found it might be, somewhat helpful. And we do have an offer available through Hello Digital Ed as well. So a little bit about me. I actually I did my undergrad at the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater. So it's one of the UW system schools. After that, I worked for Motorola in Chicago. After that, I ended up working for Cellular One, which was a cellular company owned by Bell South, which got acquired by US Cellular. And so I worked through various Fortune 500 companies. While I was working when I finished my MBA at Marquette, I had the opportunity to teach marketing at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And I developed the digital marketing curriculum, as Joe alluded to, for the MBA program there. I've had 4 startup companies. So my first one was called Sales Sherpas, which was an ad agency to help small telecoms compete with satellite providers and cable companies. That ended up turning into a software company called Bungie. So we provided turnkey loyalty software for tech and telecom companies. Then I co-founded Classmunity, which is a fundraising platform for schools. So the company helps manage online fundraisers and offline. And as Joe alluded to, I co-founded, seems like it was years ago, about 8 months ago, a company called Hello Digital Ed, which I'll talk about in a sec. I have written a couple of books. So my first one is called The Corporate Refugee Startup Guide. So that book, the purpose of that book was to help people that are mid-career corporate kind of identify their blind spots, in addition to helping them focus their business model. Interviewed a bunch of VCs and IP attorneys and obviously entrepreneurs in that book. My next book was the College Student Startup Guide. So as Joe alluded to, I manage the entrepreneurship program at the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater. So I built that as kind of a step-by-step guide for college students to launch their startups. That's actually used in some high schools now. And then last year, I wrote a book called Restart the Small Business Guide to Thriving During Chaos. And the whole purpose of that book was to help small businesses reevaluate their business model to see if it was still viable, in addition to enhancing their marketing, et cetera, et cetera. A little bit about Hello Digital Ed. So we provide contemporary, engaging, flexible business curriculum for high school teachers. So we have a digital marketing curriculum, social media marketing curriculum, and cryptocurrency. It's all digital, and it can be integrated directly into existing curriculum. So that's all I'll talk about the company and me. So let's get to the reason that you're here. So we're gonna get into kind of secrets that I found, not just personally. One of the people actually in one of our courses is one of the foremost experts on LinkedIn in the world. So I've kind of gleaned some of his knowledge, obviously, and then I've really taken that and tried to focus it on business educators and helping, people like you. So I think the first thing that's really important is to define the goal of your LinkedIn profile. And this might sound intuitive, but most people, and me included, as of, 5 years ago or so, my LinkedIn was basically just a dumping ground for things I was doing, and I would connect with some people randomly, and my summary was just a generic summary. I didn't think about the people I was drawing to my LinkedIn profile and what action I wanted them to take once they arrived. So if we think about the old adage of, attention, interest, desire, action, and you think of your LinkedIn profile as an advertisement, if you have some sort of goal, which we'll talk about the different ones that you might have, you really start to get some perspective and say, whoa, I need to think about this differently. And how do I incorporate all those elements of the attention, interest, desire, action? So these are some of the potential goals that you might have. So you might want to be recognized as an educational innovator. Maybe there's a certain subject area that you have expertise, whether it's, let's say, digital marketing or family entrepreneurship. So you might want to speak at specialized events. You might be looking for ways to engage students. So I've actually used it within the context of my classes and featured certain articles. And there's ways, obviously, to have presentations through LinkedIn as well. You might find that you want to engage parents. So you could actually create a LinkedIn page. It could be for your class or a LinkedIn for all of your students. And it could be a repository for information. You could engage innovators and entrepreneurs there. So we don't need to just kind of think about our own personal LinkedIn profile. You could develop business LinkedIn pages or organization pages as well, just like NBEA has, for example. Some educators might be looking for a new job. Maybe you're moving into administration, maybe you're specializing in marketing and you really want to focus on entrepreneurship or finance. Or many educators, I come from a family of educators, are looking at potential new careers. Maybe they're, a lot of their focus has been working in higher ed, and now they want to, teach at a high school, or vice versa, or they want to go from being a teacher to administration, for example. So setting those goals is really, really an important way to start. So the next secret is really benchmarking with best-in-class LinkedIn profiles. So many of you are going to have people within NBEA, for example, that are thought leaders, and they're naturally, many of them are probably going to have LinkedIn profiles that are really, really strong. And when I'm talking about strong, it's the connections of the people they have, not just numerically, but who those people are. Could be the posts that they've put up. It could be the jobs they've had. Could be the certifications that they have. It could be companies they've launched. Maybe they've been on boards of advisors. You and I know the sort of profiles we're talking about, where you go in instantly, within a few seconds, you're like, okay, this person knows what they're doing. And I'm a big believer in benchmarking, right? Whether it's been in academia or with my startups, rather than reinvent the wheel, after I've defined the goals, I'll say, okay, let's go out and let's take a look at best in class. So, for example, we were looking at our entrepreneurship program at the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater, and we went out and we looked at Baylor's program and Babson's program and USC and Stanford and the University of Florida, and we got that information. So no different than a company benchmarking or an educational institution benchmarking, we should do the same thing with ourselves. So a really good idea, whoops, sorry about that. What we want to do is to seek out the LinkedIn profiles of educational administrators, teachers, maybe that have won national or international awards. So when you have your conventions, take a look at those people, what they've achieved, what they're providing in their LinkedIn profiles, information they're sharing. And then seek out LinkedIn profiles of influencers within the field of education. Or it could be other areas that you're interested in. The next thing that I want to get into is getting attention, right? And again, this goes into the AIDA, attention, interest, desire, action. So we'll kind of get into the meat of a profile here. So this is my profile. Hopefully you can see this. So there's a banner here. There's my profile image. Obviously, there's my name. There's a little speaker. I'm not sure if you guys have noticed those before. We've got a description of my background. There's hashtags, contact information, and then, the number of followers, and then connections. This first icon represents the place that you're working. And the second icon represents the most recent place, the most recent educational institution where you've received some sort of degree or certification, et cetera. So let me kind of go through the science of this. So Hello Digital Ed, that's obviously a lot of my focus now. And like I said, we help business teachers provide contemporary education for students. And one of the pushes that we're making is right now is into the West Coast. And so we have a school, a pretty large charter high school in LA called El Camino Real Charter High School. And we're starting to get a lot of testimonials. So I could just have a picture of our logo on the banner, which we used to have. But instead, we had a testimonial from a student. So I created this banner, and then we have this testimonial from the student. And occasionally, it can be a really good idea to mix these up for people that are coming back to your profile. But this just by itself is part of that attention piece, right? So, we have these goals because we're going to be making a bigger push into California, and that makes sense to have a testimonial from that particular student. The next thing, and you might have noticed this or not, LinkedIn, there's a little picture of a speaker. And so it's intended to be used for pronunciation. So originally I just said Dave G. Well, what I found out is you actually have up to 5 seconds to record something. So if you're a teacher looking to network with other teachers, right? You might say, my name's Joe McClary, and I'm looking to network with business teachers throughout the US. Well, as long as you can get that in under 5 seconds, you can actually have that as part of your profile. One of the strange things, and I don't know why this is, if you have to record it after the first time, you have to do it through your smartphone. Again, strange. I don't know why they developed it like that. The next thing you need to do is think about your title. I see a lot of people that'll just say teacher or owner, right? And they might have the name of their company. But when you start thinking about your goals, you might start to think about, well, what are words that people are going to type, whether it could be on the internet, on Google, or within LinkedIn, that might kind of draw them to me, right? So I've got obviously, verbiage about our company, ed tech, being an author, the fact that I'm a faculty member. And then I always like to kind of add a mission statement at the end, right? So mine's building future innovators and entrepreneurs. So when we look at these keywords, I've got the name of the company, I've got ed tech, I've got author, entrepreneurship and digital marketing faculty. I should probably have entrepreneurship faculty, digital marketing faculty, and innovators and entrepreneurs. But beyond that, I've also added hashtags, which you can see here. So what will happen is if there's articles that are trending, those will actually pop up for me so that I can see those and then comment on them. The next thing, obviously you can select your area, and then you can put your contact information. One of the things I would kind of caution you against, I actually live in a relatively small town. It's called Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. It's, most people have never heard of Lake Geneva. In fact, I'm near there. And so if you put a city that people don't know where it's at, even though it's quaint, you might, feel some pride over that particular community. And people don't know where it's at. It can actually cause you to sometimes lose credibility. So I'll just put greater Milwaukee area, or sometimes even the greater Chicago area. And, there can be this perception, obviously, that you're part of a larger city, therefore you have more influence, for example. And some people might, argue with that. But, and then obviously your contact information, I'm not going to insult your intelligence with that. So you always want to have some sort of contact information in there. Otherwise, the only way people could reach you is to DM you or direct message you. And if that's the only method and you're not checking that very often, obviously that could be problematic because you've set up these goals and you're drawing people to your profile and they're not taking the action that you're looking for them to take.
Great takeaway, Dave. I didn't know that you could record the way your name was pronounced.
Hi, Tom Wagner here. I have a quick question for you.
Please.
Does the background, I know you might be getting to this later, but does the background picture, why did you pick those patterns and those colors?
Yeah, so they're actually complementary to our logo, the Hello Digital Ed logo.
Okay.
And so that's why we did it. So we've actually used this in other advertising. So, we could, possibly take them out. All right, let's move on to number 4. So I'm sure you guys all know what keywords are, right? So whether they're keywords on a website, for example, and you're trying to attract an audience, obviously through Google, and as I'm sure you guys know, Google owns YouTube, so using keywords in descriptions of YouTube ads are important. And similarly, we want to do the same thing with LinkedIn. So when you have your about section or your summary section, you want to make sure that you're seeding in those keywords that will draw that audience to you, right? So you might add words like digital marketing or entrepreneurship. It could be, I'm trying to think some of the other things. It might be personal finance or investments. We've rolled out a cryptocurrency curriculum. So we're going to start using that more in descriptions and ads and things like that. So really think about what people are typing in order to get to you. So, one of the things on YouTube, for example, we haven't put much energy into YouTube, and we're just starting to put some energy in. If you think about when people go to YouTube, they're usually typing how to, right? So one of the most powerful titles you can have for a video is how to X, whatever that is, and that can drive engagement. So having keywords, just like I mentioned a few slides ago, is really important. The next thing, and this can be not controversial, but you can get really 2 different schools of thought, no pun intended. One school of thought is get as many connections as you can. And then the other school of thought is be careful who you select. I happen to, fall into the second camp. I've got, one of my peers that says, look, build your network as big as you possibly can, and great things will happen, which indeed, could happen. My only challenge with that philosophy is if you're accepting connections from anyone, there is this general sense that you are who you spend time with, right? I think I had a student say, what did she say? Your vibe is your tribe. And yeah, it took me a couple seconds. She actually just said this in class this week. And so we kind of talked about that, right? Your vibe is your tribe. So who are you spending, time, excuse me, your tribe is your vibe, right? So the people that you're spending your time with are, is the presence or the positioning of yourself. So if you look at some of these people, for example, I'm connected with the CEO of Salesforce, Mark Benioff. I've got one of my former students that's a strong at podcasts. It's a founder of a highly funded and successful startup. So those are the sort of people that, I like to connect with in the field of entrepreneurship and podcasts and digital marketing and things like that. So as we move on to number 6, we want to create compelling results-oriented job descriptions. So this can be the keywords, component again, but you can see, in my role here as CEO and founder, says Dave and his team launched Hello Digital Ed as a startup in early 2021. We help high schools prepare students for the digital age, blah, 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 right? And then as you go through, so this is, if you think about it, it's kind of a headline. And then this is the statement of kind of the proof and the story, right? Of how we built it, why we built it, the benefits, the content, and then you'll notice there's an action ending, at the end. So attention, interest, desire, and then your CTA or your call to action. Okay, next thing is requesting recommendations. I'm always surprised by how few people request recommendations. If your teachers, well, it could be at high school or higher ed, you're getting requests for letters of recommendation all the time. And I don't, by the way, always provide those because I want to make sure that I know the student well, or, if it's a peer or whoever, that I can not just accurately portray them, but, that my endorsement that I'm providing is really a reflection of me, right? Just like they are of you as well. But depending on your goal, right, of your LinkedIn profile, what are you getting people to do? You want to ask for recommendations, and don't wait till you're about to change your job, which is the norm, right? Hey, can you give me a bunch of recommendations? And there's a slew of them at the last minute, and they're poorly written and everything else. So one of the things that, I'll try to do if I'm launching a startup, or I've joined a board of directors, or I'm mentoring startups, periodically I'll go out and then I'll ask for recommendations. So I think I've got 44 here, right? So this is Hoggs. He works at the Barrington School District, and he rolled out our digital marketing course. I asked him for a recommendation, and boom, we provided the recommendation. So your goal might be to get another job, or maybe you're looking to get, you've done a really good job with one of your courses, and you're seeking funding or for your research or whatever it is. But these, this obviously just provides some external validation for who you are, what you're trying to do to drive people to that action that you're looking to get them to do. So the next thing you want to do is promote licenses and certifications that you have. Obviously, NBEA has some. I'm sure you guys are members of other associations and organizations that provide certifications. So we actually provide one for our students. One of the areas that's near and dear to my heart is suicide prevention. So I got certified through QPR. And I teach entrepreneurship, and so I got a certification at Babson through their Symposium of Entrepreneurship Education. And so when you look here, people are like, okay, he knows something about digital marketing. He has passion for this cause, and he knows entrepreneurship. Now, I'm not putting all of this on here, obviously, for a specific goal, especially this one. This is, something that's near and dear to my heart. But I think it's important, for me personally to put that on there. Okay, the next thing is sharing information and content from reliable sources that will engage your audience in discussions. This is obviously a very controversial topic, especially these days, given how polarized our society is. There's some, news sources that used to be considered objective that are now considered subjective. So my recommendation is rather than, going outside your particular industry, and if you think, okay, this media source I personally feel is a very credible media source, but maybe my audience, so the people hitting my profile, I might disengage them. Why don't I focus on using sources that are reliable within my field, for example, right? So, Education Week, I'm following Ed Tech magazine, and NBA, obviously a great resource. So, being a little bit more discerning about your source of information can really help not just build your credibility, but it can help avoid some of the polarization. Here is an example, right? So this was actually from EdTech magazine. And the other thing I've been trying to do, by the way, when I'm doing shares, obviously, we could do all sorts of shares on COVID and all the challenges that schools are facing and things like that. My wife and I, she's a CNI director, and we talk about this every night. But one of the things I try to do in my profile is to share new information, helpful information, things like that. So this is actually from, I believe, EdTech magazine, and it talked about the pros and the cons of requiring students to turn on their cameras. So could be, maybe a little controversial, but there were actually some really good insights in here and some good discussions that started. So we actually, we shared this article within our company page, and you'll notice we put hashtags within it. And then after that, I posted it in my profile and I added more hashtags. So if people were searching on certain terms, then this would come up, my profile would come up, and then the company would come up. So you might want to, maybe you're, could be doing it for yourself. Maybe you've got a consulting business. Maybe you're doing some sort of project work for the school. You're helping a student on their startup or helping them build out their startup. So thinking about, the sources you're using, making sure they're reliable, trying to avoid sources that aren't perceived as controversial, and then using hashtags. The last secret that I have for you, and this one, it's kind of funny. I don't see this one used very much at all, is creating a custom LinkedIn address and including that in your e-signature and then on your resume. So my daughter's, she recently graduated from nursing school, and she had me, go through her resume. I had her build out a LinkedIn profile as well. And I said, where's your LinkedIn profile link? And she didn't have it on there. And I'd already helped her create it. And so she put that on there. And that can build not just a lot of credibility having it, but it can really help someone get a better view of you as a professional, looking at your recommendations, articles that you've shared. So it allows someone to have a much more powerful picture, obviously, of who you are. So here's an example of how I've created my personalized or my customized LinkedIn link. And I'll actually, I think our next slide will show you how to do that. And so mine is linkedin.com /in/David R.G. So here's the way that you could do this. And by the way, you can take a screenshot, but the way that you do it is you simply go to your LinkedIn page, you click on edit public profile and URL, and then this page will pop up right here. And then all you have to do is click on this little pencil, and you can have your custom domain, really. So right now it could have all sorts of numbers and letters, and you'd never share it out because it would just kind of look like a mess. So this is a great tool. It only takes you a few seconds to do this. Now, obviously a lot of names, have been taken. So I literally teach with a guy named John Smith, right? As you can imagine, linkedin.com/in/John Smith will be taken. So you might have to add a middle initial. Maybe you've got your PhD and you add that at the end, or your MBA, or whatever. So you might have to get a little creative for that. So Joe said that you guys love assessments and tools. So here's what I've developed for you. And I'll give you this free as a PDF. You can just email me, put the subject line LinkedIn. And so we've got some questions on here, and then you can just answer. Basically, if you email us, we'll send you back the PDF. And then you can rate your own LinkedIn profile. And we've got this key at the bottom. I've actually got a couple of teachers. So within our digital marketing course, part of it is building out LinkedIn profiles, and they're actually using it in their class. And the students are actually assessing their LinkedIn profile before they turn it in to the teacher for their assignment. So happy to provide you that.
Yes, I do. With higher ed, it's often hard for students to realize why they need to do certain assignments. And one of those is LinkedIn. And I really appreciate your presentation today, because that helps zero in on why they should have a LinkedIn account, and why it should look the way that you have presented these 10 items. So I appreciate that. If you could give me possibly one sentence that you would tell a college student why they need a LinkedIn account and why it should be critiqued and made to represent themselves in a very positive manner.
So you're not putting me on the spot at all, right? So my entrepreneurial mind is thinking of a value proposition. So
that works for me.
Okay, so give me 1 second. Let me see if I can think about this scientifically.
If anybody else has the answer to that, stick it in the chat. Mine would be reputation conveyance.
Right.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, reputation, conveyance of reputation. That if 2 words, conveyance, reputation, conveyance. I think that's really what it does.
So here's what I came up with. A professional LinkedIn profile helps you build your network, engage with other fill in the blank entrepreneurs, could be marketing managers, whatever it is, and help you secure a strong career. So, I mean, my students, when they're in school, the undergrad students at least, their goal is to get a very desirable job where they're fulfilled. Obviously, they feel like they're making a contribution. They're using their degree, and obviously, they're getting to live wherever they want in the world. So I'm saying that sort of tongue in cheek, but if you're in higher ed, you know what I'm talking about. So they're proverbial digital nomads. And actually the last element I think you talked about is how do they build out a LinkedIn profile when they don't have any experience. So, one of the things I really advocate our entrepreneurship students to do, we do exit interviews all the time. And one of the things that we find, and if you're in higher ed, you guys know this, is if students get engaged with student orgs, in particular, and pitch competitions and things like that, their experience is enhanced vastly over other students. So going to things like conferences and networking there and working on special projects, and yes, putting in work experience, sharing articles, getting recommendations from teachers. I mean, there's all sorts of things that can be done. I think, Joe alluded to a really important point, that the imagery, is really important if you don't have a lot of experience. So having that professional photo, the professional banner, the description of what you're trying to do. It could be seeking a finance role at ed tech startup. I mean, rather than saying who you are in your, let's see, let me go back here. Sorry about this. So rather than explaining what you are, you could explain what you're looking to do, right? So seeking accounting role with Big Four company, maybe it's accounting student at Notre Dame seeking, accounting role with Big Four accounting firm. So having that call out there and really almost kind of getting in people's face to some degree can be a great tool as well. Obviously, if they've got the experience and they're industry experts, a lot of times it's all about kind of cleaning up their profile and to help them advance their career. Because usually, obviously, if they're coming back to school, it could be to learn skills that they can apply that day in their business or in their life. But many times they're coming back to school to enhance their career or to get future new career opportunities. So,
I've got teenagers. I've got 5 kids, and 3 of them are of LinkedIn age. And it is tough, but it's not real hard for my 21-year-olds. But let me tell you some of the things they're putting on. And somebody asked, applying leadership, for example, getting recommendations from people about your character. That's number one. That can be placed up there. My son, he's got a lawn mowing business, but he just turned 16. But he's also just about to get his Microsoft certified office specialist. And that's 3 different badges that he'll have that he can put into the LinkedIn profile. He's the captain of his basketball team. He's a point guard. And so those types of things that just show leadership, engagement, ability to function, soft skills, volunteerism, anything like that really goes a long way on filling that up quickly. Then when you get a customer service job, I got 2 daughters that work at a sporting goods store. And so they put that on there, and they've enhanced and they've grown. They've done basic things like show up on time, and they've worked there now over a year. And so that type of thing goes nicely, especially for a young person. And and employers understand that. Employers don't expect a high school student to have a 3-page resume. Business communication, basic business, marketing, all those classes, I would almost expect a LinkedIn profile from the students. Not that you have to look at your school policies on what you require, but at the same time, it's probably a good place to start. And especially if they're in the Facebook things and things like this is the professional place. It's also, I use LinkedIn a lot. And LinkedIn is not a place that you go to pick political fights or to post silly things. LinkedIn is a serious business platform where you are promoting ideas that promote commerce, business, things of that nature. There's not a lot of personal stuff on there like happy birthday. So that's all saved for things like Facebook and whatever other platforms that you use. And students need to understand that. They don't need to jump on LinkedIn and start, sharing irrelevant stuff or funny things, because they're not going to garner a lot of followers like that. And so I think that's a component of it too, and understand how they use those social mediums. Probably students understand it better than we, the teachers, do. So I probably should just step back and give them the benefit of the doubt in some cases.
This is my son's. He'd be mad if he knew I was sharing this, but one of the first things we did, he was a freshman, and I said, let's go in front of the School of Business and let's take a photo there actually of the School of Business. So we actually put that in as a banner. I said, get a professional picture of yourself, start driving some connections. And he's like, I don't know anyone. And I said, well, you can start with some of mine, and then including my connections here at the University of Wisconsin. And as he was, a student, he became an academic coach, an actuary, things like that. He worked for a capital investment company. So he's, I should know this, 21, but he just started building this from nothing a few years ago. But even for him, it was work. But you can see by putting a little bit of energy, he's putting more than a little bit of energy, it can really help out. So let's see. I think the other thing is, we always focus on business, but let's see. Lindsay has one too. So my daughter's a nurse. Again, she would be mad if she knew I was sharing this too. She doesn't have a banner. But she was, a nursing student, and actually, spent some time kind of building out her LinkedIn profile. So she worked at Mayo. She's a victims advocate. She joined an association, Aspiring Nurses, worked at a birthing center, she went out, she didn't get many endorsements, but she definitely got some. And interest, we didn't even cover that, but this is super important. I mean, for anyone, especially college grads, but, employers will look at this, right? And if, obviously she actually had some interest in law before and consumer packaged goods company, this is something really easy for your students to do. Is to actually, follow, obviously organizations that, that you have interest will and have it, and employers will take a look at that too.
Afternoon. I'm sorry, I chimed in really late.
No, not at all.
So could you share with us the pros and cons of having a LinkedIn profile, the free version versus the paid version? Is it worth having a paid version of LinkedIn?
Yeah, so it's a really good question. So it depends on what your goal is. So let me go out to mine. So here's what I would say. If you were, and I hate to talk about teachers getting new jobs, but if you were seeking a new job and you were looking to network and connect with many people, I would say getting that basic premium kind of version, or if you're collaborating with other teachers, it might be worth it. I actually have a tool because one of the things that we're doing, we're in fast growing ed tech startup, and we've found that one of the best ways to reach out to schools, in addition to reaching out to teachers, is actually to reach out to superintendents and principals. So I'm not going to go into this because we've got some confidential information in there, but we use Sales Navigator. And Sales Navigator is a tool where you can literally search for people based on title, geography, industry, number of employees, level of expertise. So it really depends on, what you're looking to accomplish. Is that a sufficient answer?
It is, yes. If I were to, share this with my students, I'm pretty sure that question would come up. What would be the difference or?
Ashley, I just put, while Dave was summarizing some of that, he showed you the Sales Navigator, but I just put a link to a chart that gives you a breakdown, and it's at LinkedIn. It's on the differences between the paid and what they call the premium edition.
Right. Thanks.
Yeah, it's pretty comprehensive. It'd take an hour to explain it all, but you can glance at that chart and be able to identify that.
Rest assured, the prices went up since Microsoft bought it. Because I had snapped back when I saw some of the prices. So Sales Navigator, which I can't imagine many of you would use, I think that's $99 on a monthly, $79 on the basic. Joe, what was does it have the prices on the one you're looking at for the basic premium? I think there's 3 tiers, aren't there?
There are, and I don't see the prices on there. Yeah. One of the big features is InMail, which allows you to connect to these people through LinkedIn, but you don't get their email address. I don't think so. It's kind of like when you talk about InMail credits, it gives you the ability to reach out to people that you normally wouldn't have access to. That's the idea behind that, I think. I have used LinkedIn Premium when I was in a job search, probably more than 5 or 6 years ago. And it gives you a little bit more access, but there again, a lot's changed in the world of technology in 6 years. So that's why I wanted to go right here to the horse's mouth, so to speak, and provide that chart. All right. Well, I think that's right. We're 1 minute before the top of the hour. That's our time for today. I want to thank everybody here today for participating. The discussion was great. And Dave, thank you for taking us step by step through some of the secrets and some of the considerations that not only we need to be aware of, but our students do too.